Hello students, my name is Arshan and today we will do the 17th chapter from class 7th Science NCERT textbook, that is Forest, a Lifeline Part 2. So students, did you know that in India the area under forest cover is about 21% of the total area? It had steadily been falling since independence. But people now seem to have realized the importance of the forest cover, and reports suggest that the area under forest cover has slightly increased in recent years. So students, talking about the forest cover and forest. In the previous part, we talked about forest and their structure. Then we also talked about the importance of forest. So let us continue that topic in this part as well. So, forests provide habitat for wildlife, students. The different types of vegetation present in a forest provide food and shelter to animals, birds and insects which live in the forest, and this makes a food chain. Now, food chain can be defined as a sequence of living organisms in which one organism feeds on another. A typical chain in grassland is like grass, deer, lion. A typical food chain in a pond is algae, small fish, large fish. So, the flow of energy takes place in that manner. Now, talking about the flow of energy, the sun is the ultimate source of energy for everything on the planet. Green plants or producers are able to harness the energy of the sun to make food. In a food, flow of energy takes place, and in a food chain, energy from plants, that is the producers, is passed on from one organism to another. From the producers, the energy goes to primary consumers, that are herbivores, and is then passed on to secondary consumers, that are carnivores. Thus, producers are always at the beginning of the food chain. So students, this brings us on to the topic of dynamic living entity. Now, by harboring greater variety of plants, the forest provides great opportunities of food and habitat for the herbivores. Larger number of herbivores means increased availability of food for a variety of carnivores, and the wide variety of animals helps the forest to regenerate and grow. Now, decomposers helps in maintaining the supply of nutrients to the growing plants in the forest. Therefore, the forest is a dynamic living entity, and there carries a continuous interaction between soil, water, air, plants and animals in a forest. So students, do you know that forests can regenerate on their own as well? Yes, the dead parts of trees and plants, animals and animal waste like animal dung or droppings keep on collecting on the floor, and decomposers like fungi and bacteria degrade them into simple organic substances which are useful by plants in the form of humus. Now, this humus makes the forest soil fertile by providing the nutrients, and the animals, birds of forest, wind and water disperse the seeds of trees and plants on the forest soil. These seeds obtain nutrients from the soil and germinate to form seedlings and ultimately grow to form the forest vegetation. With this students, we are on to the topic of forest conservation. Now, let me tell you an example. Do you know paper? Paper is made from wood pulp that is produced from the wood of forest trees. So, to make paper, many trees have to be cut down from the forest. So, if all of us keep on collecting old newspapers, magazines, books, notebooks, etc., and send them to paper mills for recycling through a junk dealer, that is a kabadiwala, we will be able to save many forest trees from being cut down. Now, there are some other ways also to conserve forest, like the excessive cutting down of forest trees should not be allowed by the government to conserve forest. More trees should be planted in the forest in place of cutting down trees to conserve the forest. Also, paper products such as old newspapers, magazines, books, notebooks, etc. should be recycled to conserve them. Now, a large number of forest trees are being cut down every day to meet the various demands of the increasing population, and this is called deforestation. With this students, a question may arise into your mind that why do we need to conserve forest and why do we need to stop this deforestation? So, there are some consequences if forests disappear, like increase of the earth's temperature, as if there are no trees and plants, there will be no photosynthesis, so no carbon dioxide of the atmosphere will be used, and this will increase the level of carbon dioxide, resulting in the increase of Earth's temperature. No food and shelter to wildlife in the absence of trees, plants and animals will be there, and animals will not get food. So, this will disrupt the whole cycle of life, and gradually life might disappear from the land area of the earth. There will be more floods. As we know, the roots of the trees and plants help in holding the soil during rains, and also soil is able to hold water. Now, in the absence of trees, the soil will not hold water, which will cause floods. Also students, deforestation, that is the cutting of trees, endanger the environment. The continuous deforestation is threatening the different forms of life including human beings. So, there is necessity to think and set to conserve forest. Natural calamities like floods, cyclones, hailstorms are more in the absence of trees and forests, and people become homeless when such disaster occurs. So students, with this we are on to our another activity, that is activity 17.3. Let us perform that. Activity 17.3. Dig a small pit, put vegetable waste and leaves in it, cover them with soil, add some water and after 3 days remove the upper layer of the soil. Does the pit feel warm inside? So students, you will feel a bit of warmth inside the pit. This will stay true because of the term of dynamic living entity that we have talked about forest, and this is the process which takes place in the forest as well. So students, with this we are almost at the end of our chapter, and in this chapter we have learned a lot of things. We have learned that the various components of forest are interdependent on one another. Also, we have learned that the forest keeps on growing and changing and can regenerate as well. We got to know that in the forest there is an interaction between soil, water, air and living organism. Also, we got to know that the forests are the lifeline for the forest dwelling communities and animals and plants. Forests also influence climate, water cycle and air quality. Also students, we got to know that forest is a system comprising of various plants, animals and microorganisms. So students, with this let us move on to the exercise portion of this chapter and perform some question and answers. So the first question is, explain how animals dwelling in the forest help it grow and regenerate. So students, animals help in growing and regenerating forest in many ways. Animals work as the cleaning agents in the forest, and microorganisms work on dead bodies of plants and animals and degenerate them. Animals also help in pollination, which help in growing a number of plants. Now herbivores helps the carnivores to grow as they serve as a food for them, and thus flora and fauna, that is plants and animals, mutually grow in the forest. Moving on to another question, that is, explain why there is no waste in a forest. So students, there is no waste in the forest because decomposers convert all the dead bodies of plants and animals into the humus, which gets added to the soil. Thus, no waste remains. Moving on to another question, which is, why should we worry about the conditions and issues related to forest that are very far from us? So students, the answer is as follows, that we should be worried about deforestation as it would lead to increase in floods, increase in Earth's temperature, decreasing animals' habitat and soil erosion as well. Damage to the forest directly or indirectly affects human habitat and environment, so it must be a matter of concern among us. Moving on to another question, which is, microorganisms act upon the dead plants to produce. First option is sand, second is mushroom, third is humus and fourth is wood. So students, we know that the answer is the third option, that is the humus. So students, with this we are at the end of our chapter. I am sure you might have enjoyed this chapter. Try to go outside in a park or in a zoo and notice different types of plants and see how are they growing there. Also try to perform this activity and these exercise questions as well. It will help you out. We will meet next time with some other interesting chapter. Till then, bye bye.